all of these various items. So I had membership ID selected. It's got Encarta Encyclopedia. And look at that, all of this information. I looked up. I found some things on Idaho. I would probably have to research that a little bit more to find out information regarding this. But that's cool. Research is a new thing. Of course, thesaurus has been around for a while, but it's now in a different location. It's a little bit easier to use now. So thesaurus, maybe I'm looking for a synonym for the word hot. All right, burning, scorching, boiling, blistering, or antonyms. Okay, cold. So this is pretty easy, and look how many words I got. Fantastic. So that's thesaurus. You also have translate from English to French. Again, I've got membership ID there. Maybe I'm looking at hot again. I'd like to translate that. Bilingual dictionary, hot. Look at that. What kind of hot? I'm hot. It's hot. Can't find it? It always gives you links so you can go out and look in other places. Of course, your system can translate items depending on what sort of software is installed. You might not have the French edition installed on your system, or you might need to go out and find the Spanish or any other type of add-in for Excel that will give you the translations that you need. Close that pane, and I'm going to close this file, our membership file. Nope, I don't need to save changes, just so we're back here in our expense report. I'm also going to go back to View, to Normal View, so that we have our bearings. All right. We're still preparing this spreadsheet to be printed or for distribution. Wouldn't that be nice to insert some comments that would explain what's supposed to go in the lodging area and in the training area of this expense report so people understand it? Well, we can insert comments. They're on the review ribbon. Review, new comment. So first you need to select the cell, then click new comment. Look at this. It looks like one of those little sticky sheets of paper. Please add hotel costs only. I'm sure there are some very serious IRS rules regarding this. And you roll over it and it says, there it is. And you can see this little triangle. Now it's hard for me to tell with this formatting slanted, but I believe I did get the lodging item there. So please add hotel costs only. I could also add something into this training cell. Let's do it down here actually so that you can see what it's like in a cell that's not slanted. New comment, training. Let's just say have a nice day. Notice it says training here because that's what my computer is set up as, but it would actually say the name that your software was registered so that it would make sense. Someone could go back to you and say, hey, I noticed you put a comment in there. What were you talking about? Or we need to discuss this more. All right, so comments are nice. You just roll over them and you can see information. Of course, you can always go back and you can choose to hide the comment or show the comment. You can show all comments at once in a document or remove them all. If you're in a cell here with a comment, you could choose delete. If you're in a cell with a comment here, I'll go to the top one, and when I go next, it's just going to toggle through all of them until I don't have any more. And I'll say, hey, I reached the workbook. Do you want me to come back and loop through it again? Well, sure. Now, instead of new comment, I've got edit comment as a choice here. There is an IRS document on the file share. Please refer to that file so you know more about it. All right, so edit. And of course, I could always choose to delete a comment. Notice if I right-click here and I choose delete, it's saying, hey, are you deleting the cell or the row or the column? It's not saying, are you deleting that comment for that? We've already taken a look at the view ribbon. This is all just really to help you polish up your document. Full screen is going to show it to you, the length of your entire screen. I pressed escape and that brought it back. Show hide. Do I want to see the ruler? The grid lines. That was similar to what we showed before. The formula bar. I love to remove the formula bar when I'm in a spreadsheet that is very text intensive. If there are no formulas and I'm typing a great deal of information in a cell, I don't like what happens to the formula bar. If I'm just typing, I don't want to see that formula bar. I'm going to press escape, and that takes everything out of there. By the way, you can resize the formula bar. And so if I was just typing into this cell, eventually my formula bar is going to take up too much of my space. So you can resize that. You can show to hide it. We already had the headings information before. With the zoom, I can choose to go back to 25%, then everything's real small, 100%, or I could just zoom to that selection so I could really see detailed what's in that cell. That's something helpful if you're editing a graphic, not necessarily as helpful here in Excel. New Window, in essence, opens a read-only version of that same file. Notice I've got expense report 1 and now expense report XLS:2. It's the same file, it's just a different version of it, so I could have 2 items to modify. I'm going to close that. Arrange all is helpful if you have a number of different files open within your Excel, then you can see all of them at once. We talked about freeze panes in a previous nugget. This just makes sure all of your headings are visible on your screen at all times. You can split the window and actually work with 2 parts of it at once. This can be very helpful if you have a very large spreadsheet. I could have the top of my spreadsheet, and I could have the bottom of my spreadsheet. Notice now I can scroll. This is a pretty small spreadsheet, but imagine I had a couple thousand rows. I could be looking at the top 20 rows here and the bottom 20 rows here, and then I could be scrolling in between them. I can toggle that off. This allows me to hide the window, and then this would allow me to unhide the window. Which one do I want to unhide? This one. Saving the workspace is something interesting as well. If I had multiple files open, I'm going to choose Sales Team Performance, and I wanted to arrange these horizontally, we'll say, and I work like this all the time. This is always how I work. Many files open at once probably make more sense if you had a very large monitor or maybe even 2 monitors. If you choose Save Workspace, I'm going to call this Save Workspace. It's in My Documents. Notice it's an XLW file. Now, when I come back to work Monday morning, when I close this stuff out, I can always come here back to the same area where I stored it, My Documents, and here it is, Save Workspace, XLW, right back to the way I had it before. This can save me a lot of time in the long run. If I maximize this window, I can choose to switch window. That'll bring this back to the foreground. Switch window. All right, now I can close this item down here, and I'm left just with my expense report. So everything's looking fine. We're ready to print. We've got this quick print button that we added to our quick toolbar in one of the earlier nuggets, but of course I can always go to print here. Quick Print is going to send it right to my default printer. Control P on your keyboard does that as well. Or I can go to Print, and of course I can select from this down arrow which printer I'd like to print to. How many copies do I want to collate it? In other words, if I'm printing out many copies of the same document, do I want it to print out page 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, or do I want all the 1s to print, then all the 2s to print, and then all of the 3s to print? What do I want to print? All of my print area, maybe just specific pages. Print what? A selection? Maybe I had selected just a small range of cells. Active sheets. Entire workbook? Maybe I want to ignore the print areas and print everything. Entire workbook is going to print all the sheets in that entire file. I wouldn't recommend doing that unless you've gone through and made certain that everything has print areas and it makes sense to print out the entire workbook. That could be quite a bit of pages that you're printing out. And of course you click OK or Cancel. Here's something that I'm not sure if you knew already. If I wanted to print more than one sheet, I could do so by selecting the sheets, pressing Shift. Notice, first I'll point out there's no group there. Now when I press this group, I now have 2 sheet tabs selected for printing. I now have 3 sheet tabs selected for printing. If I were just to click this quick print button now, everything that was set for print areas on these 3 sheet tabs would go right to the printer. That's pretty quick. That's pretty easy. Group indicates you have more than one sheet tab selected. Notice as I'm clicking around here, group is still showing there. If I click on this sheet, it finally releases. It doesn't say group anymore. So once you print out the grouping, you want to be careful and make sure it's not sticking up there because that could affect other commands that you're trying to run. If you wanted to print out more than one file, you didn't even want to open them, you can do that in the Open dialog box. Let's say I wanted to print out my sales team performance, and I'll press Control on my keyboard to select more than one, my sales team working data, and also, how about my memberships? These 3 items selected, I can go to Tools here in the bottom left corner and choose Print. By doing that, it really is going to print all the sheets in these 3 workbooks. So again, you got to know what you're dealing with before you send it all to the printer, but isn't that efficient? I don't even have to go through and open up these files at all. I just go to the Open dialog box, select them, Tools, and then Print. Pretty fantastic. I'm going to click Cancel though. We're preparing this for distribution. So instead of printing it, we might want to publish it or save it or email it. Here in the Prepare area is where we can inspect the document to make sure we don't have any personal metadata in there. It can clean that out before we save it out to a drive or before we email it to others. It takes a look at all this. It looks for any comments. Maybe I don't want my comments set out. It looks for metadata. Those are items that you don't see on the screen, but things that stick in the background that may give data or information to somebody else. It looks for custom XML data, inspects the headers and footers. It looks for all of this information. When I choose Inspect, it's actually going to go through it and do that. Where was I? I was in the Prepare area. I might also want to mark it as Final. Marking it as final is going to make this read-only. Because in my situation, let's say I'm Andrew West and this is my expense report, I don't want anybody editing this information. I put this in there. I'm going to mark it as final, distribute it, so my boss can look at it and approve it and the expense report can pay it, but I don't want somebody putting extra numbers in there with my name on it. Marking it as final. We also have the compatibility checker. Excel 2007 is different than earlier versions of Excel. We've known this from the beginning because it's called XLSX as the file name, and you can't open an XLSX file in Excel 2003 or earlier versions of Excel, of course. So the compatibility checker will make sure that this is something that is going to be able to be opened by other users that aren't in Excel 2007. I could put a check here and it says always when I save the workbook, check for compatibility. That's up to you. You have to know your work environment, but I think it's fantastic that this compatibility checker works because it can let you know it's not going to fly with others before they tell you, can you please resend that email? It just didn't work. Now we're ready to send our document. Do we want to email it as a PDF? Of course, that depends on whether or not our audience has a PDF reader. This is something that can be nice because in general, PDFs are going to be read-only unless someone has a way to crack them. Send it as an email. This is going to go in Microsoft Outlook, which is perhaps the way that your business environment does that. It's pretty common these days. Email as an XPS attachment means that someone has to have the XPS add-in on their system in order to be able to use it, but it's Microsoft's version of PDF in essence. Or maybe I want to fax it right to them. As long as you've got internet fax service set up and it's going to a viable fax machine, then that would work. Probably email is our most likely bet here. And here, of course, is an Outlook document. I just type in whoever it's to, and it's been attached. Well, I really don't have anyone to send this fake expense report to, so I'd say it's time we call an end to this nugget. In this nugget, we talked all about preparing your spreadsheet to be printed and distributed. We looked at the page layout, the various views. We had some print tricks there, how you can print out multiple files without even opening them, for example. We added some comments and we were ready to send this spreadsheet out via email. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.